All right, let's talk about the single most important billboard for your work, the thumbnail. Honestly, it's part art, part science. And getting it right is literally the difference between a video that gets totally lost and one that just takes off. So we're going to dive in and learn how to make every single pixel count. And you gotta listen to Mr. Beast on this one, because he's not wrong. It is brutally, brutally simple. Your thumbnail is the gatekeeper. I mean, it doesn't matter if you've made the most amazing thing in the world. If that little picture doesn't get the click, your masterpiece just sits there, unseen. It's the first, and you could argue the only hurdle that matters. And this is the choice every single creator has to make. You can have the thumbnail on the left, kind of boring, blends in, gets completely scrolled past. Or you can have the one on the right, a high click-through rate thumbnail that just grabs you and screams viral potential. That's the magic we're going to unpack right now. So let's kick things off with the why. Why are we so obsessed with this? Because in this digital world, first impressions aren't just important, they're pretty much everything. Your thumbnail is your visual handshake, and you have like fractions of a second to make it a good one.
So how long do you have? Get this. A study from Netflix found you have just 1.8 seconds. That's it. That is the average amount of time someone looks at a thumbnail before their brain decides, click or keep scrolling. That is your entire window of opportunity. It's nothing.
And this brings us to the one number that rules them all, CTR, or click-through rate. It sounds technical, but it's super simple. It's just a percentage that tells you how good your thumbnail is. Every time it pops up on a screen, that's an impression. Every time someone clicks it, that's a click. Divide the clicks by the impressions and bam, you've got your CTR. So you're probably asking, okay, what's a good CTR? Well, YouTube says about half of all channels are somewhere in the 2 to 10% range. But here's the real secret. Don't worry about that. The real game, the one you should be playing, is to always try and beat your own channel's average. That's how you know you're improving and building momentum. Okay, so if we need a high CTR, how in the world do we get it? Well, this is where it gets fun. We have to go into the psychology of it all. See, getting a click isn't really a design problem, it's a marketing problem. It's all about human behavior. And this idea right here is a total game changer. It's not about being a Photoshop wizard. It's about understanding what makes people tick. The real work is figuring out what design will make someone stop, understand what they're about to see, and most importantly, feel like they have to click. So how do you do that? Well, you have 4 main psychological triggers you can pull. First, emotion. Use expressive human faces. It's an instant connection. Second, story. Hint at some kind of change or a journey. Third is familiarity. Using things people already know and recognize is a great shortcut. And number 4, the big one, curiosity. You got to create a little information gap that they are desperate to close. And really, it just boils down to this. The thumbnails that win, the ones that really perform, they either look absolutely incredible or they tell a story that you just can't ignore. They have to signal some kind of challenge, a problem, or a change that makes you go, okay, I have to see how this ends. This whole curiosity gap idea is just so critical. A weak thumbnail just tells you what's inside. It's like a boring book report. But a killer thumbnail, it shows you a puzzle, it teases you. It shows you an amazing result, but doesn't tell you how it was done. The viewer's need to click is tied directly to how much they want that mystery solved. Okay, with the psychology down, let's get our hands dirty. Let's get practical. This is all about your toolkit, the actual design tips and tricks you need to know to make something with maximum impact. First up, let's get the boring but absolutely essential stuff out of the way, the technical specs. You gotta make sure your file is 1280 by 720 pixels. That's a 16 by 9 aspect ratio. Keep the file size under 2 megabytes and just use a normal file type, like a JPEG or a PNG. Get this right and it'll look sharp everywhere. Next rule, you have to stand out with color. Your thumbnail is floating in a sea of other thumbnails, and anything dark or muddy just disappears. You need bright, vibrant, high-contrast colors that grab the eye. Good contrast also tells the viewer's brain exactly where to look first. Now, when you're thinking about text, just remember this one phrase: less is more. Always. Think of it like a billboard on the highway.
not a page in a novel. Just use a few powerful words to create some intrigue, and let the image do most of the talking. Here's a great little trick. Keep deleting words until it doesn't make sense anymore. Then, add that last word back.
And the font you pick really matters. It sets the whole vibe. A font like Bangers, that's all high energy and punchy. Montserrat is more clean, modern, great for something classy. And a font like Luckiest Guy is just fun and playful. You gotta match the font to the feeling of your content.
So how do you make sure people can actually read your text, even if the picture behind it is super busy? Here's a pro tip. Use something called a scrim. It's just a fancy word for a semi-see-through layer that you put behind the text. Or just use a really simple, high-contrast outline or a drop shadow. It works wonders, I promise. And look, when you put all these pieces together, you start building something bigger, a recognizable brand. The key here is just being consistent. Over time, you want people to be able to spot your thumbnail in a super crowded feed and instantly know, oh, that's one of their videos. So try to stick to a go-to font, a color palette, and maybe even a consistent layout.
All right, on to our final section. Once you've got the basics down, how do you go from making good thumbnails to making great ones? Well, it all comes down to testing, learning, and using actual data, not just your gut feeling, to win that click. The absolute gold standard for this is A/B testing. YouTube is even rolling this out as a native feature now. The idea is simple. You create a couple different versions of your thumbnail. You let the test run for a bit, and you see which one gets a higher click-through rate. Then you pick the winner. It's that easy. Stop guessing and start testing. And right before you hit publish, every single time, run your thumbnail through this final 3-point check. First, the clarity test. Shrink it way down like it would be on a phone. Can you still tell what's going on? Second, the story test. Does it make you ask a question? Does it create that curiosity? And third, the remarkable test. Be honest with yourself. Does it actually stand out from the competition? Okay, one last and really, really important point here. You gotta be responsible. You can't just go grabbing images of celebrities or movie characters off of Google. That's called copyright infringement, and it can get you in real trouble. You need to either have permission or make sure your use is what they call transformative, meaning you've added a whole new meaning to it. Just be smart. So in the end, that's what a great thumbnail is. It's a promise. It's a promise of a story, a solution, or just an incredible experience. And when you combine that smart psychology with good design, you can craft a promise that's just impossible for someone to ignore. You are just one killer thumbnail away from your next big thing. The only question is, what's it going to be?